My name's Karim Misohi. I'm the Vice Chair of Grenfell United and bereaved family member from the Grenfell fire tragedy. The aims of Grenfell United is to seek truth, justice and change through our various campaigns, different campaigns that we do. For example, we campaign for the combustible material that's up and down the country that has caused millions of people to be unsafe in their homes, to be banned from being used. We also campaign for a change in social housing. We want people to be treated with dignity and respect. We want there to be a proper system and process for social housing tenants to raise concerns through their landlords or whoever it may be, because tenants in Grenfell weren't listened to, and had they have been, the fire could have possibly been prevented and our loved ones would have still been with us today. So we need to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. So when social housing tenants want to raise concerns with their landlord or their housing association or whatever the power may be, that they are listened to and treated with respect. Whether it's mold, whether it's fire safety issues, whether it's mice or rats infestation, but what's clear across the board is that these tenants are being left to sort it out themselves. They're being ignored, they're not being listened to. And as you can imagine, the mental anguish that it will have on the person, especially if you have young children, the safety issues, it's just horrendous. And what we want to make sure is that these tenants are looked after, are listened to, are treated with dignity and respect, not threatened or told that they should be lucky because they've been given social housing, or that they should keep quiet or they're going to be moved elsewhere. It should be basic human rights for human beings to live in habitable homes.
My name's Edward Daffan. I'm a committee member of Grenfell United, and I'd like to thank the National Social Housing Safety and Compliance Week for allowing me to say a few words on behalf of the committee. I'd like to explain that Grenfell United has been through 3 different phases since our inception in the days immediately after the fire. To begin with, we were concerned solely on a kind of humanitarian response in putting our arms around each other and giving each other some time and some space and some love to recover from the shock of what happened to us. And that phase was quickly replaced by the need for us to galvanise and work to ensure that some of the practical challenges that we were facing with rehousing, mental health were addressed by the local authority and the National Health Service. But very much now, 4 years after Grenfell, we're concerned with 3 aspects really: truth, justice and change. It's imperative that the public inquiry delivers truth to us so we can really learn what happened, expose the reasons why we were subjected to a culture of non-compliance, why the health and safety that so tragically impacted on us was allowed to happen, and for Sir Martin Morbick to formally put in place, in black and white, the truth about what happened to our community. We're also seeking justice. We're seeking that those perpetrators against our community, those people who are involved with allowing the Grenfell fire atrocity to happen, go to jail for lengthy periods of time, and that the companies responsible for ignoring our health and safety are held responsible with corporate manslaughter charges. But I guess what I'm really here to talk to you about today is change, really, and we're absolutely determined that people are not treated the same way that we were treated. People living in social housing are not treated the same way that we're treated. Sir Martin Morbick made it clear when he laid out the terms of reference for the public inquiry that social housing was not going to fall under that remit. And at the time, Theresa May came forward and promised the Grenfell survivors and bereaved that the change that would come in social housing was going to be delivered through a green paper and then a white paper. And we were very, very disappointed that in the recent Queen's speech, the white paper in social housing was omitted, because we're determined that change will occur in social housing. No change can occur without legislation, and that change can't happen without the white paper on social housing. The jury's still out on what will be delivered in the white paper. It has potential of delivering a 7 out of 10 or potentially a 2 out of 10, depending on how seriously the role of the Ombudsman in dealing with complaints is taken. And it was a serious blow to members of Grenfell United when the government admitted this important piece of legislation from the Queen's speech. We're expecting inside the white paper on social housing to see some of our main demands, at least in some way, met. Demands that will see residents' complaints properly addressed by the Ombudsman. Demands that will see systematic failures by housing associations addressed and investigated by the regulator for social housing. An overhaul of professionalisation inside the social housing sector. When we talk about professionalisation of the housing sector, we're talking about the need for the people that work inside that sector to sign up to some values and ethics that back up the need to treat people with respect and treat people with humanity. The need for them to be in possession of qualifications, to understand what it is they're meant to be delivering to their service users. And to undergo continuous professional development, to show a dedication to their profession. And some of you may say, but this is going to cost money, this is a cumbersome, difficult thing to implement, but the negative impact of having people working inside the sector who do not understand what it's like to be mistreated by someone. As a registered social worker, I'm required to undergo yearly continuous professional development. I sign myself up to values and ethics, and I'm required to have a qualification. The impact of a poor housing officer, particularly at the kind of a estate management level or above, is akin to the damage that can be done by having a poor social worker who doesn't understand their roles and responsibilities. And the proof of that is what happened at Grenfell. We had people undertaking roles with no understanding of what their roles and what their responsibilities were, and as a consequence we suffered, and we suffered so badly. It's devastating to us that 4 years after Grenfell, residents are still forced to put their concerns onto Twitter and hope that someone like Daniel Hewitt, who I'm sure many of you have seen is doing an amazing job exposing the squalor, the ill treatment that many residents are still facing in social housing. In particular, the health and safety issues that he discovered and has brought to the public's attention. But it's not good enough that 4 years after Grenfell we're relying on journalists and Twitter to make our concerns heard. So within the social housing sector, we're very aware that there's a small percentage at the top who are doing a good job in delivering social housing services to their tenants and leaseholders. We're aware that there's a large body that falls somewhere in the middle that are doing a kind of reasonable job but could probably be doing better. But, you know, as residents of Grenfell Tower and living on the Lancaster West Estate and being subjected to the Kensington Chelsea Tenant Management Organisation, we're very aware that there are other residents out there that are experiencing a very, very, very different sort of service to what they should expect from their landlord. I mean, we described our landlord as a mini mafia, as having no interest in delivering services to their tenants and residents. It was a racket. It was set up purely to deliver on self-interest. And it's those housing associations that we're most concerned feel the full force of the white paper on social housing. That proper inspections, proactive, unannounced inspections of social housing providers are facilitated by the regulator of social housing, that tenants have a proper and robust complaint process made clear to them by their landlords, where they can go to the ombudsman, and a little bit like the financial ombudsman, where you can just one click away on a computer, you can actually get your concerns addressed. But I guess the most important thing is tenant voice and culture, and that residents are really listened to, and residents cannot be listened to unless that culture inside your organisation has changed.